They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking.
Hi, this is Nikolai, and you're listening to my dad, Rabbithole, co-host James Jardine, and featuring Mr. Jim Tiller on the one and only Down the Security Rabbithole podcast. Plug in, listen up, and enjoy.
Deep into this pool of regrettable situations. Pitch black, think back to the last time that we were happy.
All right, we are back for episode 2. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole once again. Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Raph. We are in part 2 of our AI series. Part 2 of how many, you ask? I have no idea. We're about to find out. I'm going to keep recording parts until we run out of things to talk about. There does not appear to be an end in sight yet. You may notice a new guest from last time. He is all the way to my, that way, to my left. Eric, welcome back.
Thank you much. Always happy to be here.
You've been on before, but now we get to talk about something even more fun. And, of course, Mr. John Dixon from the previous episode. John, welcome back.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy. All right, and you guys know Jim and James down below here.
The nice thing about this, Eric coming back on, is, there's no waiting for somebody to say AI. It's going to happen.
Right, yeah. If you have an AI, if you have a drinking, what do you call that? A drinking game with the bingo squares, and AI is in a couple of them. Just open the bottle. It's going to happen. This is what this podcast is about. All right. So last episode, if you guys haven't caught it, 655, we went through and essentially like 10 miles wide and a quarter inch deep. I think we just let John sort of lead us, and then I asked 17-point meandering questions, and then
without beer.
Yeah, there was no alcohol involved in that, just so we're all clear. That happened completely organically. And so we thought, let's find little bite-sized chunks and segments of this to address. And then because I like to add chaos into these, the original Chaos Monkey, Eric, is on with us now just to have some fun. All right. I want to take this all the way back because we started talking about AI and we got into use cases and kind of pivoted all sorts of things. But for those that are listening that don't live in AI, because believe it or not, there's still people out there that don't. Who wants to define, like, what is it? How is it different than, say, machine learning? And how does it function? What is it? Is it really the Terminator? And why not?
Gosh, who wants to take that one?
Don't everybody jump in at once, though.
I would just say it mimics human intelligence. Like mimics is a good way to put it. It certainly isn't thinking, reasoning that in May of 2025. It appears that way, right? It appears like you're talking to it. It appears truthful. It appears relevant, and it may or may not be. So that's the interesting part of it. Is it mimics that, and we didn't talk about it last time, but the Turing test and kind of the being able to it basically is imperceptible, the difference between a person and a machine. That's one way to look at it, but that's it. It mimics human intelligence is how I characterize it.
So the it is an algorithm, right? It's a mathematical formula, a model that takes input in, as and tokenizes all these things.
Yep.
And then creates output based on that input. Am I in the right ballpark?
In the ballpark, in one of the ballparks. Yeah, I would say that's the other thing, and this is kind of, again, we could probably spend a whole show on definitional parts, but like the key is it's an opposite mode of the compute model for 40 or 50 years, which was hard-coded rule sets, recipes, code, if statements. Like this this is going a different direction than the bulk of computing energy for 50 years. So throw that one in there.
Locke, you got something to say on this? I know you do.
I mean, just having worked around this stuff for a while, way back when I was at Pattern X, we were working with MIT's CCell lab where they were doing a lot of early research into this. That's where we proved that AI could actually do security if it was in a lab within constrained environments. It's usually in the wild, things kind of crash and burn. Because of the fact that AI models, they're basically a prediction engine. You're trying to train them with data. The data is, like you said, tokenized, and that's turned into basically math, into a feature vector, which is just a bunch of numbers. That's added to a bunch of algorithms. The models will be, multidimensional, depending on how many vectors you have. It could be, dozens, hundreds, thousands of dimensions. And then when you ask a question of it or you give it some input, its whole idea is it's trying to predict, based on everything it knows, what the correct answer is or what it is you want to see. And as we see with ChatGPT and the LLMs today, they can get it wrong sometimes, and you can then do human-based or human reinforced learning, where you give it feedback, where it tries to adjust the answers, and the algorithms changed a little bit, where it tries to become more accurate. Or conversely, there's no data around that, and it ends up, fabricating something, because it doesn't necessarily fabricate something. It just grabs random information once it kind of reaches the end of the tree, and just grabs that information and kind of sends it back to you. A TLDR of way that kind of AI models are is a prediction engine, I guess. It would be a good analogy, versus a machine learning model where it's basically taking that same data and just modeling it through the different dimensions. And then most of the time you use machine learning for kind of one of the two extremes. What does the norm look like if you're looking at kind of a bell curve, versus what does an outlier or anomaly look like? What are the things on the edges that are standing out from the rest of the data? So that they're kind of used for different uses. I mean, the machine learning is, give me the norm or give me the outlier, the anomalies, and the AI engines are more of like predicting what they think you want to hear or see based on the information it already has. It's already been trained. So
we tossed around, we used the word inference. It infers, right, based on previous data. This algorithm infers the next, what the answer should be, what the sentence structure should be, what the output should be. What are guys? What's that? What's this? What does that mean that it's good at, and what is it bad at?
I mean, good at brainstorming for you. Good at doing research on things that are well trodden. If you want to look up interpretations of Hamlet, there's a million of those out there. So there's probably great questions and answers set to plagiarize Hamlet. But like, if you want to go and get a chicken fajita recipe for barbecuing in Danish, a little trickier, and that's where you probably hallucinate, where it just like picks something that's like there's nothing in any language model there. They don't cook chicken fajitas in Stockholm, or wherever, and so there's nothing. I don't think.
Yeah. Having lived in Sweden, I can confirm that there's no good Mexican food in Sweden. That was one of the main things.
But beef fajitas, they do beef fajitas, right? Is that it?
Yeah. So yeah, can confirm horrible Mexican food in Sweden.
I'm guessing though that would kick something back, though, right? I mean, it would tell you something. I guess the question there is, would you eat it?
Yeah, would you cook
or should you eat it?
Like, and ironically, recipes are the great example of you getting it wrong. And my point being is that there's probably not a lot of recipes. In lieu of no recipes on fajitas in Danish, it's going to hallucinate or create something that may turn out to be just a horrible dish to eat.
Well, not even horrible, right? Like, we're putting chlorine and we're putting, whatever, like poisonous dish that it creates because it doesn't know. So it just hallucinates whatever. Don't get your recipes from AI, I think is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. It's a good point to kind of illustrate that a lot of the assumptions we have around AI are incorrect. We assume it can do some of these things, but again, its knowledge is finite, right? Whatever it knows, whatever it doesn't know. And to John's earlier point, it doesn't have the ability to take that next step and kind of like extrapolate to an independent idea. So when we're looking at things like, I'm sure that one of the LLMs has tons of recipes for fajitas, could it extract from that information an actual, Danish or Swedish recipe for fajitas? It probably could, but they don't have the ability to do that. It can't come up with an independent thought around that. And the same applies if you apply these things to security. Like we assume, we're going to feed it all the user data that we have for all of our users, and it's going to find the bad things. Like, no. Like, how would it know to take that next step just based on the information you're asking it?
Is that where we see, though, and I don't know if this is exactly where agentic sits, and maybe that's for next time, but where you're seeing multiple models being used, and you're saying, we see this in the coding world, right? Where like we've got something that'll write the code, we've got something that'll verify the code, and they've got two completely different aspects. So take that to the recipe. I've got something that can create a recipe, and I've got another one that knows, hey, this stuff's poisonous to humans. Don't let them have this. And it'll go back and verify, yep, there's nothing in here that's going to hurt you type of thing, right? Where we start kind of chaining these together.
Yeah. That's the current thing we're going after now is kind of where OpenAI calls it the chain of reasoning or whatnot. And we're seeing it in some of the AI security startups where they'll chain several models together, each of them to do its own specific piece, and they wrap it all together and say, this is our product. And it ends up being, several models around code security, again, or SOC stuff, where each of them does a certain step. And they also use other models to verify those steps are correct. So you have, like, to your point, maybe one model's writing the code, and another model's reviewing the code to make sure there's no issues in it or whatever. And then somebody else is reviewing it for something else that the other models aren't necessarily trained to do to begin with. So I see us heading down that path, which I think is what they're referring to as agentic, where each of the agents does its own specific thing. You wrap it all together, and that makes a fully baked model, I guess, or a fully baked product.
Yeah, we saw that with like second and third generation GAN models, right? And then they started learning like, oh, we could kind of begin to stitch these together. So instead of having, say, one AI, you had almost like a room full of AIs that had specializations that could come together on a decision.
Yeah, we're seeing that in the SOC space where they're stitching together. Here's an AI model, here's a detection model, here's an alert module, here's a triage module for agents.
It makes sense absent of compute dollars to do what you just described is heavyweight processing. Oh, yeah. And that might be the business case for just regular automation or regular scripts. I mean, at some point, I did an interesting aside. I got to moderate a panel in January in Austin on AI's impact on the grid. And I was a moderator, but we had a guy from ERCOT. If you remember that name, ERCOT, that was when the grid failed about 4 years ago. The CEO of ERCOT, and then two electrical providers. One thing that jumped out at me was that the GPU's drain on the grid is 16x CPU or some crazy number. And the amount of data centers that they have projected for our state is like off the charts. Like in San Antonio, there's like 60 they're going to be built in the next 5 years because we're a very kind of business-friendly state. We have a solid grid, no, whatever. But like 16x, like a data center that does LLM training is like off the charts more of a drain than a cloud hosting one. Just think about that for a second. So I don't think we think about it that much, but I think at some point when you start training LLMs together and just brute forcing the heck out of stuff, there's a point where you have to say, like, is there maybe a more elegant or cheaper way to do it? I don't know. Just
the short-sightedness of we want all electric cars, but we don't have the electricity to support all electric cars, right? Like we want all AI, and now we find out, well, wait a minute, maybe we don't have the support structure for the amount of AI we want to actually run.
James went there. He went there. He did it.
He
opened the can.
Yeah. Well, hey, Eric, I muted your mic because you got some audio interference. So when you're going to jump in, just unmute. But
I just noticed I was using the microphone from my remote camera rather than the one I have sitting here. So I'm like, crap.
All right, that's okay. We'll just mute you in between. So here's where I'm thinking. So okay, now that we've kind of defined the box that AI lives in, talk to me about the applications. Because I want to sift them out because there seems to be just like with IoT, there are consumer applications, commercial applications, right? It can help you cheat on your PhD thesis on a homework assignment, help you grade things, that kind of stuff, or it can refactor enterprise code. I feel like those are two wildly different branches of applications for the same machine.
Would it be okay if I added a third, Raph? Not to
absolutely. I'm not saying I have the authority on this at all, Jim.
So we haven't brought this up before, but it's this space I'm spending a lot of time in. But there are also military applications with
yes,
AI, right? So I just want to throw it out there. We don't have to go down that path, but there's a lot of, shall we say, how consumers use AI or how maybe commercially applied, whether it be like, say, AI and day trading all the way through providing AI tools for SOC analysts kind of thing, or software solutions, or ChatGPT, like a consumerization. It's a completely different calculus when you get into the military complex.
Anyway, I feel like using machines to we've seen some applications of this, right? Everything from drones to mine laying robots to mine clearing robots, because we technically don't care if one of those things that's a machine, right? It goes over, it blows up. Oh, well, it's money loss, but it's not a human life. I start to worry when we start talking about the applications of machine algorithms to the use of deadly force. That's a whole nother level of, oh boy. Okay, so there's at least 3 applications that we can. Is there a fourth? Anybody got a fourth?
Well, we have time. By the end of this session, we'll come up with one.
Let's take a quick break.
Should I be excited or afraid of AI? The answer is yes. It's both.
Things are going to look so different in the next couple years. You will not be ready for the disruptions that are going to come.
I'm Jeff Nielsen, host of Digital Disruption, the go-to podcast for technology leaders. Our generation's conflict, I think, is going to be emotional, not economic. The companies that are going to win are the ones that have a couple of characteristics. Stay ahead of the curve with Digital Disruption. Available now on your favorite podcast platform.
That's what I was afraid of. There's probably 8 more. We're just
as we talk about stuff, we'll be like, wait a minute, this doesn't fit in the bucket. We got to create a new bucket for this.
We have time to tell one good war story, true war story.
Go for it.
Desert Storm guy. I was a targeting guy, intelligence guy in Desert Storm. We had a weapon system called the HARM missile, anti-radiation missile fired from wild weasels. And interesting story, what they would do is you shoot them to shoot at the enemy's radars, knock out the radars, knock out their surface air missiles. But they had this function in them. If the enemy turned off their missile, the missile guidance or target tracking radar, the missile would flex and fly and go through an internal database of threat radars, starting with the worst to down to like air traffic control radars, and would just look around and just like, oh, there's one over here, and go after it. So that was 30-ish years ago, and it worked. It shot a B-52 from behind because that was the only radar that they could find. It shot height finders. It shot counter battery radars on the ground for our artillery. It shot all kinds. So this kind of stuff, there's not a bright line between automation, internal databases, and AI. This stuff is already happening. Fratricide from weapon systems that did that. That was 1991-ish. But that happened. I was in the middle of that, and I was like, holy crap, man. And we had to tell the guys shooting these things to shoot them that way, not close to, like, not this way. So that was a little war story.
I feel like that would be a duh, but maybe
no. But well, in combat, like everything comes out. You don't know which way. So yeah, that was fun. It would happen. It was kind of spooky at the time. They told us how it worked. It was like it just looks up and looks to its database. What else is out there?
Sounds like it's not necessarily AI, but yeah,
it's not AI, but not Skynet.
So guys, Skynet. Let's not go. Okay, well, Skynet. If you had that on your bingo card, shots. Can we talk about just focus on kind of application? So if we're going to go, I don't necessarily want to get into the military because that's several conversations. But let's diverge this into commercial and consumer applications because I think that's different. We've got one potential of building sort of AI at the edge. I think I've heard it called, like into your Meta glasses and into some device that now that OpenAI has bought the guy who designed. Yeah, with earpieces that'll tell you all about the people you're walking around meeting and whether they're worth your time or not in a cocktail party and stuff like that. That's scary as hell. So you've got consumer applications, which I want to separate from commercial applications. Commercial applications to me are things like, and let's kind of go hyper focused on security, right? So the applications to security. I'll use one that hits close to home that we just kind of talked through at the day job, where they're using an AI that they've obviously purposely trained and worked through that triages, investigates, and potentially either passes on or closes security incidents faster than any human can possibly even think. I look at that and go, that's cool. Does that actually work? And on what broad of a spectrum does that work? Does that work on like super novel things, or does it only work on things we've seen before? Eric, I feel like this is your realm of expertise. Unmute and hit that one.
Yeah, I was trying to
you are unmuted.
Can't do it.
You're muted.
Crap.
Okay. Yeah, you're good.
We can hear you.
Computers are hard. It's fine.
I know it's like my first time using one. And what was the question? Now that I've completely lost my train of thought.
We're talking about like
my first cup of coffee.
A AI that can go through a detection or a series of detections coming from different places.
Yeah. Triage,
investigate, either clear and do something, or pass on with more context for that somebody actually go do something.
Yeah, I've seen, like, obviously at RSA, I got several examples of that. Looking at some of the AI SOC companies, I saw Nico Pop's cool little video where they took.
That's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, that was really neat and really cool. Right? It's an interesting use case, especially to help to remove the haystack from the needles, because it was going through and saying, hey, look, this is actually not a thing because it's a vulnerability scanner or whatnot. So this is something you have to worry about, which is probably, that's the majority of the problem we have is, trying to find the needle in the haystack. If we can remove the hay, auto-magically with some AI, that's great, right? At the same time, to John's earlier point around cost, like when I was doing some of the math, Anton's done some math when I met with him last week in Napa. I met some people on the sales and finance side at RSA, and they were actually asking the cost questions. And for say you're at a 3,000 to 5,000 person company, you have 1,000 words per day. You want to stick LLM agents on this to auto triage all those things. And depending on the pricing model some of these vendors use, to do 1,000 words per day, again, that's probably about a 3,000 to 5,000 person company, SMB. That's going to cost you anywhere between $1.5 million and $4 million a year, just for the compute power and the cost of them crunching all the data and giving you those answers. And that's in addition to whatever budget you're already spending on your Wiz and your CrowdStrike and everything else, right? That's making all the noise. To have those guys crunch it, that's a net new budget item. Imagine if you go to your CFO and say, hey, I need $1 million to buy this triage tool. And they're like, no, I'll give you 5 guys in India or the Philippines or someplace to do it manually, because it's going to be far cheaper. While it might be able to do those things, and I haven't seen proof that it can actually triage all the things, like whenever you get the demo, it's always a demo of them, oh, we found the APT and we kicked them out. Okay, that's a once in a career thing, right? Or we found this really rare thing. I'm like, that's great, but show me how you go after the other 99% of the garbage. Again, kind of like what Nico showed of, hey, this is actually this is not a true positive. We can move on with life. And that's the majority of your things, right? It's a true positive alert, but it's benign for some other reason. That's the largest bucket of detections you have to deal with from a SOC point of view. So, of course, I want those things eliminated. But at the same time, it's going to cost me $1 million a year. I'm not going to get that money for it. I'm going to get back to doing it manually. And so while some of these tools may do this, again, I haven't seen proof that you can do all the things. It's always been kind of a targeted use case approach. I think until the costs come down, like it's only going to be affordable to the largest companies, like the Googles, like they're doing it internally with their own AI models, or conversely, probably MDRs and MSSPs, the people that are providing a uniform kind of flat service to all their customers, where it's repeatable every day, where they can actually stick agents on things they know will provide value, versus an enterprise, where enterprise, everything we do is custom to your enterprise, right? We're not going to buy an off-the-shelf anything. That's going to work at scale and deliver that kind of uniform service to you. And so I kind of see the big companies, MDRs and MSSPs, leveraging this stuff first because they can operate at scale. And, if you're either a huge company, the cost doesn't matter. Again, if you're at Google, because you're doing it to yourself to provide it to your customers, or if you're an MDR, MSSP, your SOC is a profit center, not a cost center. So, of course, you want to be able to deliver more value to customers. Meanwhile, enterprises, like we are a cost center. We have to pay for it out of our pocket. I'm not going to get a budget for $1 million to buy one of these tools. So I see the cost probably being a blocker to entry. Even if the stuff works 100% of the time amazingly well, if I can't afford it, it doesn't matter.
Is this something where we're going to see, because of the cost, almost I feel like what we saw with cloud, right? Everybody like, oh, I'm going to jump on cloud. And then you see a whole bunch of people like, wow, this costs way too much. I'm going to jump back on-prem. Are we going to see a spot where people go away from homegrown automation to say, oh, AI can do this, I won't automate it. And then they see, oh, wow, I can't afford to do that. You know what? I'll go back and I'll just automate it the way we've been automating it for 40 years. And I'll go create my own rule engine to be able to go through and find those things and say, okay, this indicator here, I can chuck these out. And we almost kind of boomerang back around that. We go out to AI and we're like, yeah, let's go back to automation.
If you listen to the pitches and how they're trying to sell, kind of the AI SOC or whatnot today, and I stole this from Anton because he observed this before I did, but the messaging we're hearing today is the same messaging we heard about, SOAR 10 years ago, right? Oh, it's going to automate all the things, all the problems we've done.
Ooh, that's
the
a harsh
same thing.
criticism
It's the same thing we heard about UBA and UBA. Oh, we're going to model behavior, solve all the problems. And before that, the same messaging we had around SIM. Put all in the SIM, all the things will come out of it, you'll be fixed, right? It's the same promises you've been here for 20 years. Will it deliver this time? I don't know. I'm hopeful, but again, it has to get down to where they can actually prove they can handle all the things that SOCs do, if we're talking about an AI SOC engine. Or like to your other point of kind of automation, like there are kind of like the AI light ways of doing this, where you don't necessarily stick an LLM on all the alerts and have them go to town on it. You look at some of the automation vendors like Pines and Torque and those guys, like they're not sticking the LLMs on the alert. They're sticking it on the, hey, I'm going to use this to make your automation work better. And that's affordable and repeatable. So they're sticking the AI agent to automate something that then gets repeated over and over again, rather than sticking the LL agent and the thing gets repeated over and over.
All right. So I made myself a note. We're going to come back to this topic. I want to cover AI in the SOC in future episodes. This is not a 5 minutes worth of discussion, guys. But go ahead, John. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say that I would point out one thing a little slightly different is that the board and exec level pressure to do it is different than many of these previous technologies. I would say specifically cloud. And that was in the panel I was on with Anton Chuvakin. I think we're talking about the same Anton, right? Or is there a different Anton? Now he's become like a Brazilian soccer player. He just has one name, Anton.
Chavakinator.
But he brought up, that was a point of discussion between he and I on that panel. And it's this CEO fear of missing out, weird existential stuff. I'm a subscriber to HBR, Harvard Business Review. I'm an MBA type, CEO type. So I get all the business stuff too. And man, these guys are worried that they're going to be the Blockbuster to Netflix when this is all said and done from an AI standpoint. So you have that managerial pressure. And then, so you have, this is, my personal view is CISOs and CIOs are trying to take this non-technical managerial imperative and do stuff with it to say, yeah, here's what we're doing in the SOC. Here's what we're doing over here. Here's what we're doing in app dev. Whether it's right or wrong, or whether it has guardrails or not, we're doing it. At least that's what we heard. We're doing AI. So we see all kinds of behavior.
In that manner, it does feel like cloud, because that was very similar, right? You had that whole there was a whole lot of FOMO from executives and boards. Like, if we're not going to be on cloud, we're going to miss out. We're going to miss out on agility. We're going to be a dinosaur. We need to do this. And then IT directors and CIOs got these, like, you have to go do this. Figure out a way to incorporate cloud or AI.
I don't want to do the counterpoint again, but I would just say was more of a CFO and cost containment play initially.
Maybe, okay.
Even though it was a CFO play, not a CEO play. That's the difference, I would argue.
That's fair.
That's
fair. So, okay, so we quickly we hit the commercial space and quickly went to SOC. But there are non-security, non-IT applications of AI too. Like, I've heard of great applications in the healthcare space where you can the one I've seen, I think, repeated a dozen times in different places, is reading MRIs and X-rays. Right, you can do it much faster and much better accuracy (asterisk) than a human doctor can. The asterisk usually comes with, yes, but it's really a good idea for somebody to then review the reviews. Yep, this feels like when Microsoft put out its thing and said, okay, like, this is now, you should all sign up for this, but you probably shouldn't trust any of the output. That kind of worries me, right? Because if I'm going to buy something, and Eric, this is your cost, your budget question, and John, you said it too. Like, if I'm going to go buy a piece of technology to automate, to remove friction, to do something better, I don't, like, this was my argument against all the offshoring we did in the late 90s, early 2000s. If I'm going to go pay somebody else or something else to do the work, I'm not super interested in going back and reviewing all their work, because now it's just happening twice. Am I crazy here?
That comes on the truck,
yes,
right?
you may be crazy, but for different reasons.
That's why we have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Did they review it though, Raph, or did you just put the disclaimer that says this might not be accurate? Trust at your own risk.
No, we reviewed
in healthcare. I don't know if I'd put that disclaimer on there. So the use case I saw was that somebody would then go and review at least. Of the ones that were, like, if you're looking for cancer on the screening, the ones that were negative, somebody would review them at random to make sure that they were consistent. And the ones that were positive definitely went to a human being for review.
Yeah. I'm going to just tell you a story. My wife just did an MRI, false positive. Okay. That's the other thing that they're worried about, is like lots of false positives scares the crap out of all these folks. Right. So this is a false positive, false negative thing. I think the conventional wisdom is that it does help you. And what do doctors do when they have a corner case diagnosis? They consult a peer. They do peer review. They ask somebody else. So looking in that context, it's not authoritative truth. It's like another resource that, hey, man, I just have this weird, odd set of circumstances and diagnosis, and I can't figure it out. That's what they do. I do think it helps. I do think over time, with enough imagery, those MRIs will get better and better and better, because we know what goodness looks like. But man, false positives and false negatives do have their consequences. Like, scares the crap out of you.
What are we? When they're not. What is? I was just saying, what is the rate though? I mean, I think some people in that space will start asking the question, right? I mean, so humans make false positive and false. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, I mean, like the personal story is my mother-in-law passed away from breast cancer, and my wife got a false positive and just went and did an MRI. Now we're good, but it was like the false positives. I mean, and suddenly, these are real things, man, that affect real people. They are helping, but they're afraid of missing something. So that's where the gain turns up and on, or up and down.
Well, and we've seen, John, and we've all seen, at least I follow a bunch of law podcasts because I'm curious on law. And I think a lot of us have heard about the cases where lawyers use OpenAI or Claude or some other model to then help them find relevant cases to the one they're trying, summarize those. And the example, I can't think of the case right now, but the example of a lawyer in front of a judge arguing a case that never happened.
Michael Cohen, Trump's fixer, did that in a court filing, and it was a made-up court case. It was like Roth versus Dixon, whatever. It was a totally hallucination. They made up something, and that made it into a court brief. So that happens.
That kind of stuff is. But I mean, humans make mistakes too
all the time,
right? So then, does that make okay? But if a machine makes that mistake, now we're saying we spent all these resources on it, and it's also making mistakes.
But humans can be in a position where they can help minimize the implication of a hallucination, or they amplify it, right? So, like in the case of the lawyer, he just assumed the AI was correct, and then decided to run forward with a fake case. So that was a double negative positive.
Let's fast forward driverless cars, and I can tell you this because two insurance clients who both view their business models will be obsolete in 15 years because 90% of most accidents are human error. If you can somehow have whatever level of autonomous vehicle, maybe not completely level 5 or whatever, at least you can intervene and prevent certain things, and you get that level down, the need for insurance might be lower and lower at some point. That's the way the insurance companies are thinking.
Not in Atlanta. We still have the worst drivers in the country.
Yeah. The point being is that is a business case for AI is taking the human error component out of something as straightforward as driving.
That's interesting.
So are insurance companies going to lose revenue because the AI is a better driver?
Yes, that's exactly. I won't name the name of the company, but I know that's exactly what they're talking about right now. I'll go on the record.
So that's the second order effect, right? We talk about AI taking people's jobs. Now
that's an indirect effect. That's an indirect effect of driverless cars.
Reducing insurance premiums.
And DWIs. Do you think 20 years from now we'll have DWIs? Why? I mean, right now we have Uber, so there's a human mistake getting into a car instead of taking an Uber. But now you can't. That human mistake won't be able to just get in a car, level 5 autonomy, just jump in a car, go home. So
what I noticed when I was at RSA, we took some Waymos to cruise around in them. They're really fun. The thing spins and it has your initials, which one to get into and whatnot. But what I noticed when we were cruising around San Francisco in this thing is, all the cameras that are on it, it's observing its environment around it, and it's basically kind of training itself based on what it's seeing as it cruises through traffic. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is, as the Waymo we were in driving around San Francisco, it was driving like San Francisco drivers. It's learning from the cars around it how they drive, right? It was cutting people off, even though it used the blinker, right? It was patoop, and people were honking at our Waymo. I'm like, yeah, that's going to help, right? There's nobody driving it. But it was driving like a San Francisco driver was. And it kind of brings you back to, how a lot of AI models today, they still have selection bias because they're being trained on human inputs, right? Yep. So as long as we're training it on human behaviors, it's going to act like us. Hence why I see my Waymo, again, use the blinker, but it still cut the person off, right? It's still swerving through traffic to get out of the way if someone's blocking it. Just like I would, getting all aggro and driving around. This Waymo was too, and I'm like, yeah, I'm here for it. Let's go. And people are honking at the Waymo. I'm like, yeah, I'm honking at the Waymo.
That's interesting to think. What if the Waymo's capturing fender benders and, hey, I can scrape across this car to get in here. Like it starts learning. Just wait till everything is autonomous and they're just crashing into each other trying to drive.
Road rage. I'm going to put road rage on this one. Yes, let's drive with road rage.
Are honking back at them, or flashing their lights or something, or start screaming at them.
It's big digital.
How quickly does this devolve into like robo-car wars?
I know.
I think rather rapidly if we're not careful.
In place to prevent those things. I mean, but that's going in, and you're adding additional guardrails to the training it's getting. So while it learns to drive, it doesn't learn how to drive like someone in California. Per se,
or
California
Boston
mode versus Atlanta mode. Yeah, no, I think the key for me is conceptualizing the unintended consequences is quite difficult as we get further and further along. And I think you made a point, or we all made a point, that there's human error components in diagnoses and driving and all these different things. I do look for. I'll give you another example that I think wherever we live could be very interesting is driverless trucks. We have I-35 here between San Antonio and Dallas. It's a parking lot, and it's almost entirely 18-wheelers. They're already starting to roll out trains. Like the first one is maybe human, and they have robot trucks behind it. But to optimize that and have all those knuckleheads driving from 1 a.m. to 5 in the morning, there actually may be a business case for not expanding interstate highways to 6 or 7 lanes like they are in Houston. You could actually optimize the existing highway infrastructure via this.
That's an interesting application.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, guys, I think we're up on time. Did we cover anything that we wanted to cover? I think we did. We kind of did.
Did we ever?
Yeah, I mean, I think we did. All right, so we defined it. We started talking about use cases, commercial, consumer, and then we put military over here because it scares us a little.
Because of Jim.
And because Jim was here and he had to, he had to be that guy to bring it up.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just waiting, Jim. I'm waiting for the automatic targeting on handguns, right, where it won't let you fire if it perceives that it's not a threat. That kind of stuff is coming.
So at the handgun level, we already have all the biometric, all that kind of stuff. It's only a matter of time, right? It's only a matter of time.
Only a matter of time. Yeah. All right. I think we're gonna continue this because this is nowhere near done. I think I want to talk through the things that we talked through today, commercial and consumer applications. I think we should talk through the security implications beyond hey, that car is going to drive through a crowd of people or into the next car or into a wall with the because I can totally imagine some smartass out there painting the Wile E. Coyote tunnels on walls and a bunch of Waymos just smacking into a wall because that plays out in my head just beautifully.
As long as you make the Waymos all look like the Roadrunner, it's not a problem. They'll go right through it.
I think that's the catch.
I actually saw something
but I think we should
where someone had taken a brown paper bag, like you get from the supermarket. They watered it up into a ball and put it in front of a Waymo, and the Waymo couldn't tell that it was a paper bag. They thought it was a rock. So it is, because they don't use radars anymore. It's all camera based, so it is kind of you could do that. I wonder if it would try to drive through a Wile E. Coyote.
Please don't try to do that if you're listening to this podcast. We are not responsible for people drawing. Yeah. We are not responsible for people painting and causing accidents. Please don't do this.
I'm going to paint one on the wall, and we'll see what happens.
Now I got to edit you out of this entire podcast. Thanks, Eric.
And when we crash, I'm going to have a little sign saying Raph told me to do it.
No. Oh, good Lord. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you,
John, Eric. This has been fun. I think in the next one, I want to talk through how to do security from a security perspective, the non-IT security, non-cyber security stuff. So the protecting the data inputs, the outputs, the functions, and all that of the different components that are out there, the different pieces that are out there. Whether you're talking about a hospital or a missile targeting system, or a Waymo. God help you if you draw that on the wall.
Okay.
I think that'll be next. So look for part 3 coming after this. I think we're going to record it. If you're listening to this, I think we're going to record it on the 9th on Monday live. And you can, once again, if you're part of the YouTube channel and you subscribe to us on LinkedIn, you can watch this live and then scream along at your monitor as we try to make sense of this or not. But for now, that's it. We're done.
Thank you.
This has been at least entertaining, possibly enlightening. John, Eric, Jim, James, thank you guys for being here. Folks, thank you for listening. Thanks for checking us out live. And we'll see you another time, another place, on another Down to Security Rabbithole podcast. Now I've gone down a rat hole where we will definitely talk more AI. And I don't think I'm an AI, but I'm going to go find out. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
This is Bella. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave my dad a review and share this with your friends. Bye.